December 27th, 1944, 10:15 a.m. 30,000 feet above the shimmering expanse of Tokyo Bay, where the winter sun glints off the distant Pacific like shattered glass, the air bites like a blade, thin and unforgiving, as the massive silver form of the B-29 Superfortress slices through the stratosphere. Inside, Uncle Tom's Cabin Number 2. The pressurized cabin hums with the rhythmic thunder of 4 Wright R3350 duplex Cyclone engines, each one a beast churning out 2,200 horsepower, propelling this flying fortress at over 300 miles per hour toward the heart of the enemy empire. You can feel it, the vibration rattling through the aluminum fuselage, the faint scent of aviation fuel mingling with the sweat of 12 men crammed into this mechanical marvel, their breaths fogging the perspex blisters in the sub-zero chill outside. Major John E. Krause, a 28-year-old from Elmhurst, Illinois, grips the yoke with steady hands, his eyes scanning the instrument panel through his oxygen mask. He's not the regular aircraft commander. That was Captain Guy Dobbs, Jr., sidelined by a freak Jeep accident back on Saipan just yesterday. Krause, a seasoned pilot from the 498th Bombardment Group, 874th Bomb Squadron, stepped in without hesitation, his voice calm over the intercom as he calls out altitudes and headings. Beside him, co-pilot Second Lieutenant Robert M. Rawlins from California, barely 22, adjusts the throttles, his face taut under the fur-lined helmet. Their leading T-25, serial number 42-24642, part of a formation of 72 B-29s from the 21st Bomber Command, thundering in from the Marianas Islands on Mission 16. A daylight precision strike against the Nakajima Musashino aircraft plant, the beating heart of Japan's fighter production. The collision comes like thunder in a clear sky, a blinding flash, a deafening crunch of metal tearing metal. The Ki-44 Shoki slams into the vertical stabilizer of Uncle Tom's Cabin Number 2 at over 350 miles per hour. The impact rips the entire tail fin clean away, sending it tumbling into the void like a severed wing. The B-29 lurches violently to the left, the sudden asymmetry yanking the nose down as aerodynamic forces fight the crippled rudder. Inside, the world explodes into chaos. Men are thrown against bulkheads, oxygen masks tear loose, instruments shatter, alarms scream in a shrill chorus. The fuselage vibrates so violently that the aluminum skin ripples like water struck by a stone. "Tail's gone!" Sandlin's voice cracks over the intercom from the rear compartment, raw with shock. "The whole goddamn tail is gone!" Krause and Rawlins haul back on the yokes together, muscles burning, fighting to regain control. The Superfortress wants to spin, to fall into the irreversible flat spin that has already claimed so many B-29s. Sweat beads on Krause's brow beneath his leather helmet as he trims the ailerons, feathers engine number 1 to counter torque, anything to keep her flying straight. You feel the terror in that moment, the realization that 1 second of violence has turned the most advanced bomber in the world into a wounded giant, bleeding control surfaces and stability. But the gunners do not freeze. Westerman, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead where his head struck the periscope housing, snaps back to his station. His hands fly across the General Electric central fire control switches. "Upper turret, track bandit 6 o'clock low! Lower turret, cover the belly pass!" The remote guns whine into motion, the analog computers whirring as they calculate lead and deflection for targets streaking past at combined closing speeds of nearly 700 miles per hour. Tracers lash out in bright orange arcs. A second Ki-44, emboldened by the first rammer's success, dives in from above. Sealy on the right blister locks on. The twin .50s in the upper turret hammer in perfect synchronization. The Japanese fighter's engine erupts in flame. It rolls inverted, trailing black smoke, and plummets toward the clouds below. "Splash 1!" Sealy shouts, voice hoarse but triumphant. The intercom crackles with rapid-fire reports. "Left gunner, another on our beam!" Tail cannon, firing! Bandit breaking left, got him smoking! In the space of 90 seconds, the gunners claimed 3 more fighters. One sheared wing torn off by concentrated fire, another exploding mid-air, a third spiraling down with its canopy blown away. Yet the cost is mounting. Fire licks from engine number 4 now. The ramming impact severed fuel lines. Ray battles the blaze from the engineer's panel, dumping CO2 extinguishers, but the flames stubbornly persist, fed by vapor leaking into the nacelle. The propeller windmills uselessly before he feathers it. 3 engines left. Altitude begins to bleed away, 29,000 feet and dropping. Rybicki's voice cuts through the din, calm and professional despite the madness. 1 minute to IP, holding steady on the bomb site. Kraus glances at the formation. Other B-29s are taking hits. Smoke trails mark wounded bombers falling out of line, but the main box holds. He keys the mic. We stay in formation. We drop our bombs. That's the mission. No one argues. The Japanese fighters regroup for another wave. You can almost see the desperation in their maneuvers. Tight, aggressive turns that bleed energy, pilots pushing their aircraft beyond limits. Radio chatter intercepted later would reveal orders from ground control. Ram the B-29s. Stop them at all costs. Another Shoki lines up from astern, engine screaming as it closes the gap. Sandlin, isolated in the tail with his view now unobstructed by the missing stabilizer, tracks it through his 20mm cannon sight. Come on, come on! He squeezes the trigger. The cannon thunders, recoil shuddering through the rear fuselage. Shells tear into the fighter's radiator. Steam and glycol burst outward in a white cloud. The pilot jinks wildly, but it's too late. The Ki-44 flips onto its back and dives away, trailing coolant. Yet 2 more peel off from the swarm and commit. One aims for the starboard wing root, the other for the cockpit. Time slows. The crew braces. The second ram is only seconds away. The cockpit fills with a blinding white glare. The Ki-44, aimed at the starboard wing root, strikes first. Its propeller chews into the leading edge between engines 3 and 4, just aft of the massive wing fuel tanks. A thunderous explosion of splintered aluminum and shredded plywood wing skin erupts outward in a deadly cloud. The impact shears the entire outboard panel of the right wing, tearing away 10 feet of span in an instant. Fuel vapors ignite immediately. Orange fire blossoms along the jagged edge, licking hungrily toward the remaining tanks. The B-29 rolls hard right, almost inverting. Kraus and Rawlins wrench the yoke left with everything they have. Boots braced against the rudder pedals, arms straining until veins stand out on their necks. The bomber shudders, groans, but slowly levels, barely. The asymmetric drag is monstrous now, the missing tail and mangled wing conspiring to flip them into the grave. Before anyone can breathe, the second rammer hits. This one slams dead center into the fuselage just forward of the vertical stabilizer stump, where the tail gunner's compartment meets the rear pressurized bulkhead. The fighter's wing root smashes through the thin skin, crumpling frames and longerons like tinfoil. The explosion of force drives the entire rear fuselage upward, buckling the keel. Sandlin, strapped into his tail turret, is thrown violently against his guns. Blood streams from his nose as the 20mm cannon mount twists in its ring. The tail turret's glass blisters shatter outward. Wind howls through the breach at 300 miles per hour. A frozen cyclone ripping charts, oxygen hoses, anything loose into the slipstream. "Tail hit again!" Sandlin roars, voice ragged but alive. "I'm okay. I'm still here." You feel the disbelief wash over the crew. 3 deliberate rams in under 2 minutes. No bomber should still be flying. Yet Uncle Tom's Cabin number 2 refuses to die. The gunners, fueled by rage and survival instinct, pour fire into the remaining fighters. Westerman's central fire control system, miraculously undamaged, tracks multiple targets at once. The upper turret swings in a deadly arc. .50 caliber hammers in long, sustained bursts. A Ki-84 Frank, painted in the green and brown camouflage of the elite 47th Sentai, misjudges its pass and flies straight into the cone of fire. Its fuselage disintegrates mid-air, wings folding like paper as it tumbles earthward in burning pieces.
"That's 5, Westerman calls out, voice cracking with exhaustion and triumph. Seeley and Sienkiewicz on the side blisters add 2 more. One Ki-61, Tony takes hits in the oil cooler and trails a ribbon of white smoke before its engine seizes. Another Shoki explodes outright when a burst walks up its belly into the cockpit. The Japanese pilots hesitate now. You can sense it even from 30,000 feet, the shock rippling through their formation as they witness this silver monster absorbing punishment that should have destroyed it 10 times over, still flying, still shooting, still killing. But the cost is catastrophic. Engine 4 is fully engulfed. Ray feathers it, but the fire spreads inward along the wing spar. Fuel pressure drops across the board. The severed wing tanks are bleeding precious avgas into the wind. Altitude is down to 24,000 feet and falling steadily. The bomb bay doors remain closed. They have not yet reached the target. Rybicki's voice, steady as ever. 30 seconds to bombs away. Holding the sight. Holding. Krause's jaw sets beneath his oxygen mask. We are not turning back. Not after this. The formation ahead begins its run. Black flak bursts flower around them now. Closer, more accurate. Shrapnel pings off the fuselage like hail on a tin roof. Another wave of fighters forms up astern, but they hang back, wary. Only one breaks away, a lone Ki-44, its pilot clearly intent on finishing what his comrade started. He lines up on the crippled tail, throttle wide open. The crew sees him coming. Sandlin, bloodied but defiant, swings his damaged turret toward the threat. The distance closes fast. Impact is inevitable. The lone Ki-44 hurtles forward like a kamikaze arrow, its olive-drab fuselage gleaming in the harsh winter light, propeller a blurring disk of death. Sandlin, his face smeared with blood from the earlier impacts, hunches over his sights in the mangled tail turret. The 20mm cannon's barrel is dented but functional, the twin 50 cals beside it still hot from previous bursts. He tracks the incoming fighter, leading it slightly to account for the relative motion, his finger tightening on the trigger. The cannon booms, once, twice. Shells streak out, exploding against the Shoki's cowling. Fragments fly, the engine coughs black smoke. The pilot veers off at the last instant, trailing oil, but not before unleashing a parting burst from his 12.7mm machine guns. Bullets stitch across the B-29's rear fuselage, puncturing the already compromised skin. A high-pitched whistle joins the cacophony as cabin pressure begins to bleed away. "Missed us! He's braking!" Sandlin reports, his Texas accent thick with relief. But the damage is done. Another fire sparks in the aft compartment, electrical wiring shorting out in blue arcs. Krause doesn't have time to acknowledge. His world is the yoke, the altimeter unwinding like a broken clock. 22,000 feet now, the formation pulling ahead as Uncle Tom's cabin number. 2 wallows in the turbulence of its own wounds. The right wing fire has spread, a hungry inferno chewing through insulation toward the main spar. Ray, at the engineer's station, works frantically, rerouting fuel, isolating systems. "We've lost number 3 completely. Switching to auxiliary pumps." You are in the cockpit with them, the air thickening with acrid smoke that seeps through seals despite the pressurization. Oxygen masks fog with every labored breath. The bomber's once mighty hum is now a labored groan, vibrations shaking loose rivets that ping around the interior like spent casings. Yet the target looms ahead. The Musashino aircraft plant sprawls below, a vast complex of hangars, assembly lines, and smokestacks belching gray plumes into the sky. Nakajima's engine works, where radial power plants for the Army's fighters are forged, Ki-43 Oscars, Ki-84 Franks.
Intelligence photos back on Saipan showed it as a priority target, its destruction a hammer blow to Japan's air defenses. Rybicki in the nose, his bombardier station a cocoon of dials and optics, locks the Norden bomb site onto the aiming point, a central machine shop marked by a distinctive roof pattern. The crosshairs steady despite the plane's bucking. Bombs away in 10, 9. The Japanese defenses unleash hell. Flak bursts erupt in a deadly garden around them, 88mm and 105mm shells from ground batteries tracking the formation with radar-guided precision. Shrapnel tears through the left wing, puncturing a tire in the main landing gear bay. A fragment slices into the bombardier's compartment, gashing Rybicki's arm. Blood spatters the bomb site glass, but he doesn't flinch. 5, 4. Fighters swarm anew, sensing vulnerability. A pair of Ki-61 Heens, sleek, inline engine interceptors from the 244th Sentai, dive from the sun, cannons thumping. Westerman directs the fire. Lower turret, engage low pass. Side gunners, cover the flanks. The 50 cals roar in unison. Sienkiewicz on the left blister catches one Tony square in the cockpit canopy. It shatters, the pilot slumping as the plane rolls away uncontrolled. Seeley nails the second, tracers walking up its fuselage until the tail separates in a spray of debris. 6 and 7 down, Westerman tallies, his voice a mix of awe and fatigue. The central fire control system is a miracle, computing range, speed, ballistics in real time, allowing gunners to focus on acquisition while the machine handles the math. But the Rams have taken their toll. Control surfaces are sluggish. The elevators bind from severed cables. Krauss coaxes every ounce of lift from the remaining engines, but the bomb bay doors grind open slowly, hydraulics leaking fluid in red streaks along the belly. 3, 2, 1. Bombs away! Rybicki toggles the release. 10 500-pound M64 general-purpose bombs tumble free, fins stabilizing as they arc downward in a string toward the plant. You watch them fall in your mind's eye, whistling through the thin air, accelerating to terminal velocity, impacting in a chain of earth-shaking detonations. Fires bloom below, secondary explosions ripping through fuel stores and machinery. The Musashino plant takes a grievous wound, production lines silenced for weeks. Cheers erupt over the intercom, ragged and defiant. "We did it! Bombs on target!" For a brief moment, triumph pierces the despair. These men, Krauss with his quiet command, Rawlins' youthful grit, Rybicki's precision, have struck at the heart of the enemy, even as their own craft crumbles around them. But victory is fleeting. The formation banks away, heading southeast toward the coast and the long haul back to Saipan. Uncle Tom's cabin. Number 2 cannot follow. Altitude slips to 18,000 feet. The right wing fire rages unchecked, structural integrity failing. A spar cracks with a sound like a rifle shot. "She's breaking up," Ray warns. "We gotta bail or ditch." Krauss scans the horizon. Tokyo Bay below, a cold gray expanse dotted with shipping and coastal defenses. No friendly territory in sight. "Prepare to abandon ship. Grab parachutes. Walker, Hewlett, help the wounded." The observer, Major Walker, unstraps and moves aft, his face pale but determined. Radio operator Hewlett keys a distress call. "Mayday! Mayday! T-square 25 down over Tokyo Bay. Position 35 degrees, 30 minutes north. 139 degrees, 45 minutes east. Multiple rams, on fire." Fighters circle like vultures, but hold off, perhaps out of ammunition, or sheer disbelief at the B-29's tenacity. The gunners claim 2 more, a straggling Ki-44 shredded by the upper turret, another forced to disengage smoking. 9 kills now. 10. The tally climbs as desperation fuels accuracy. Yet the plane spirals downward, right wing drooping like a broken limb. Krauss fights the controls, but it's a losing battle. The bay rushes up, waves capped white in the winter wind. "Bail out! Bail out now!" Hatches blow open. Men tumble into the void. But not all will make it.
Wind howls through the open hatches like a banshee's wail, tearing at flight suits and whipping loose gear into the slipstream. The B-29 Superfortress, once a gleaming symbol of American industrial might, is now a mortally wounded behemoth. Right wing ablaze, tail a ragged stump, fuselage holed and bleeding smoke. At 15,000 feet over Tokyo Bay, the winter sea churns below. A slate-gray monster fringed with whitecaps and dotted by fishing boats scattering like frightened minnows. Coastal batteries on the Uriga Peninsula bark defiantly, their 120mm guns hurling shells skyward in futile arcs, bursts blooming harmless in the distance. Krauss's voice cuts through the chaos, steady as granite. "Jump on my mark! Chutes ready! Stay together if you can!" You are with them in this heartbeat of decision. The cockpit a furnace of flashing lights and acrid fumes, panels scorched where electrical fires lick at insulation. Rawlins clips his ripcord to the emergency release, his young face ashen, but eyes locked on Krauss. "You first, sir. That's an order." "No time for that, Bob. Out you go." The co-pilot hesitates, then nods, swinging his legs over the sill of the top escape hatch above the cockpit. He drops feet first into the void, the rush of air swallowing his shout. His white parachute blooms a second later, a fragile mushroom against the blue, drifting toward the bay. One by one, they follow. Ribicki from the nose, arm bandaged hastily by Walker, tumbles out the forward hatch, his bombardier's goggles still fogged with blood and sweat. Beyer, the navigator, grabs his charts instinctively before leaping, a last tether to the mission's precision. Ray, the engineer, pauses at his panel, killing the master switch to prevent a catastrophic spark, then dives after them. Westerman in the CFC station fights the controls one last time, directing a parting burst from the upper turret at a shadowing Ki-45 Toryu. The twin-engine fighter veers off, one propeller feathered, but not before its observer machine gun rakes the bomber's belly. 11 confirmed! Westerman yells, tallying the gunner's kills, a defiant middle finger to the enemy as he bails through the mid-fuselage hatch. The side gunners, Sienkiewicz and Seeley, strap on their chest packs amid the blister stations, the panoramic views now framing their final glimpses of the formation receding like ghosts. They leap port and starboard, parachutes snapping open amid the thunder of the remaining engines. Hewlett, the radio operator, clutches his survival kit, flares, rations, a .45 pistol, before vanishing down the rope ladder to the waist hatch. Sandlin from the tail, last of the aft crew, crawls forward through the debris-choked corridor, his turret abandoned like a wrecked shrine. Blood crusts his flight suit, but he forces a grin over the intercom. "See you boys on the beach! Don't forget the beer!" Walker, the observer, helps Hewlett, then turns to Krauss. "Major, that's all of us. Your turn." But Krauss shakes his head, eyes on the gauges. Altitude, 12,000 feet. Airspeed decaying to 180 knots. The right wing folds inward with a sickening crack, the fire eating through the main spar. The bomber yaws violently, nose dipping toward the inexorable sea. "I'm staying. Get out." Walker argues, but there's no time. He jumps, his staff officer's dignity forgotten in the plunge. Alone now, Krauss keys the mic one last time, broadcasting to any listening ear. T-square 25 to base. Target hit. 11 kills. Good hunting. Static swallows the words as the transmitter shorts out. The plane spirals into the descent, a silver corkscrew trailing fire and smoke.
Fighters circle at a respectful distance. No rams now, only wary shadows. Ground crews on the shore would later report the crash. A thunderous impact at 11:47 a.m., the B-29 cartwheeling across the waves in a spray of foam and wreckage, engines cartwheeling free before sinking. The forward fuselage crumples on a sandbar near Futsu, half submerged, a testament to impossible endurance. You witness the chutes drifting down, 11 white canopies against the gray, some tangled, others pristine. The crew scatters across the bay, some splashing into shallows near Japanese patrols, others carried by winds toward the open sea. Rawlins hits the water first, the cold shock knocking breath from his lungs. He inflates his Mae West life vest, scanning for comrades amid the chop. Rybicki surfaces nearby, arm throbbing, but alive, clutching a wing of floating debris from the crash. But not all emerge. Sienkiewicz's chute fouls on the burning wing fragment. He struggles, entangled, before vanishing beneath the waves. Seeley, carried too far out, fights hypothermia as his Mae West fails to hold air. Sandlin, weakened by blood loss, strikes a submerged wreck from a prior raid, his cries lost to the wind. Rescue is a cruel lottery. Japanese patrol boats swarm the area, machine guns trained on the silk blooms. Fishermen, conscripted into Coastal Watch, haul in the first survivors with nets and lines. Rawlins, among them, dragged aboard a sampan, hands bound before he can protest. Beyer washes up on a mudflat, feigning unconsciousness as soldiers approach. Rybicki and Westerman cling to the same chunk of fuselage, paddling toward shore under fire from a shore battery. Bullets skip off the water around them, but they make the beach, surrendering with hands raised, the Norden bomb site's precision now a memory. Walker and Hewlett are captured intact by a Kempeitai unit, their officer and enlisted statuses noted grimly in reports. Ray, drifting alone, signals a passing destroyer with his flare gun, only to draw its deck guns, forcing him to dive. Krause's fate seals in the cockpit. The final plunge crushes the controls around him. No chute, no escape. His body, later recovered from the wreckage by salvage teams, would be identified by dog tags twisted in the harness. Major John E. Krause, 28, from Elmhurst, unyielding to the end. As night falls on Tokyo Bay, the survivors huddle in makeshift cells, the weight of their stand sinking in. 11 fighters down by official tally, perhaps 12 if Sandlin's last burst counts. The Musashino plant burns through the evening, its output halted, a ripple in the tide of war. But for these men, the battle shifts from skies to shadows, interrogations, forced marches, the long wait for liberation. Shock ripples through Imperial High Command. How did one B-29 absorb such fury and still strike true? The human cost lingers, a quiet fury amid the statistics. Smoke curls lazily from the wreckage scattered across Tokyo Bay, the twisted hulk of Uncle Tom's Cabin No. 2 half buried in the silt near the shore, waves lapping at its scorched aluminum like a hesitant eulogy. December 27, 1944, draws to a close under a leaden sky, the sun dipping low and casting long shadows over the debris field. Japanese salvage teams, clad in olive uniforms and armed with acetylene torches, swarm the site by dusk, their officers barking orders in clipped tones as they catalog the technological bounty. Fragments of the Norden bomb site, scorched wiring from the General Electric fire control system, even dog tags tangled in the cockpit wreckage. Major John E. Krause's remains are pulled from the crushed nose section, his sacrifice etched in the crumpled metal. A quiet end for the man who held the line. You stand on that imagined shore, the salt air heavy with the scent of burnt fuel and cordite, as the survivors' stories unfold in fragments pieced together from post-war interrogations and declassified reports. Of the 12 men who climbed aboard that morning on Saipan, only 3 would return home alive. Second Lieutenant Robert M. Rawlins, Second Lieutenant Stan Rybicki, and First Lieutenant John W. Wright. Their parachutes carried them into enemy hands, but fate spared them the immediate execution that befell some captured airmen. Rawlins, the young co-pilot from California, splashed down near a cluster of fishing vessels commandeered by the Imperial Navy. Dragged aboard, dripping and shivering, he was stripped of his flight suit and bundled into a truck bound for Tokyo's Omori POW camp, his mind replaying the rams like a nightmare loop. Rybicki, the bombardier, whose precision guided those bombs to target despite the chaos, hit the water with his wounded arm, screaming in protest. He surfaced amid floating wreckage, clinging to a section of the B-29's flap until a patrol boat hauled him in. Blood loss blurred his vision, but he managed a defiant glare at his captors, Kempeitai agents who noted his Polish surname with suspicion. Ray, the Texas engineer whose quick thinking kept the engines running long enough for the drop, drifted farther out before being netted by a destroyer. His survival kit yielded a chocolate bar he bartered for a cigarette during the rough transfer to shore, a fleeting comfort in the face of uncertainty. The others were not so fortunate. Sergeant Edward M. Sienkiewicz, the left blister gunner from Michigan, whose steady hand claimed multiple kills, tangled in his chute lines amid burning debris. He vanished beneath the waves without a trace, his body never recovered. Corporal Kenneth A. Seeley from Oregon, right gunner and tally keeper of the defensive barrage, fought the cold current but succumbed to hypothermia, his Mae West deflated by shrapnel. Tail gunner Corporal Richard Sandlin, the Texan who held the rear against all odds, struck a submerged obstacle, perhaps wreckage from an earlier raid, and drowned in the shallows, his bloodied form washing up on a mudflat to be claimed by Japanese troops.
Navigator Second Lieutenant Kenneth E. Bayer, from parts unknown, feigned death on the beach, but rifle butts roused him into captivity, only for him to perish later in a forced march, weakened by exposure. Radar operator Staff Sergeant Morris R. Tyler from Wisconsin and radio operator Technical Sergeant Clarence B. Hewlett from Missouri both parachuted successfully, but were captured and executed under orders from fanatical officers, their fates sealed in shadowy reports stamped secret by the Imperial General Headquarters. Central Fire Controller Sergeant Gerald J. Westerman, the Wisconsin farm boy who orchestrated the gunner's symphony of destruction, bailed out with Rybicki, but was separated in the water. He, too, fell victim to summary justice on the shore. Observer Major William H. Walker from Utah, the wing staffer evaluating tactics, landed intact but was interrogated harshly at Yokosuka Naval Base, succumbing to injuries and malnutrition before war's end. 9 lives lost in the crash and its aftermath, a grim arithmetic that underscores the brutality of aerial warfare over Japan. Yet their stand echoes through history. Post-mission debriefs from the 498th Bomb Group on Saipan painted a picture of awe. Other crews witnessed the rams, the defiant fire, the bombs dropping true. Intelligence estimates confirmed 12 Japanese fighters destroyed, Ki-44s, Ki-61s, Ki-84s, by the B-29's gunners, a record for a single Superfortress in one engagement. The Musashino plant, hammered by the formation's payload, saw production plummet by 60% for months, delaying reinforcements for Iwo Jima and Okinawa. 21st Bomber Command analysts noted the shift. Japanese pilots increasingly resorted to ramming as conventional intercepts failed against the high-flying giants, a tactic that bled their experienced cadres dry. Imagine the ripple effects. The families back home receiving those dreaded telegrams.
Gold stars hung in windows from Illinois to Texas. Krause's widow in Elmhurst raising their child alone. Rawlins returning scarred but alive to marry his sweetheart. The story of Uncle Tom's Cabin No. 2 became legend in Army Air Force's lore, whispered in ready rooms as a testament to resilience. Post-war, survivors like Rawlins testified at war crimes trials, their accounts damning the executions that claimed comrades. Decorations followed, posthumous Distinguished Flying Crosses for the fallen, a Silver Star for Krause's command under fire. In the broader canvas of World War II, this mission exemplifies the turning tide, the B-29's technological edge clashing with Japan's desperate valor, foreshadowing the firebombing campaigns that would level cities. You feel the weight of it. These were not invincible heroes, but flesh and blood men, thrust into a maelstrom of steel and flame, their defiance a spark against the darkness. As the war ground toward Hiroshima and surrender, the memory of that crippled bomber lingered, a symbol of shock, disbelief, and unyielding will. In the end, their sacrifice shortened the conflict, saving untold lives on both sides. But at what cost? The bay's waters hold the answer, silent and eternal. If you like this video, please subscribe to the Witness Earth Network channel and share it with your friends. We'll see you again soon with another unique and true story from World War II.
You are there with them, feeling the weight of their mission. These men, drawn from farms, cities, and small towns across America, have trained for months in the sweltering heat of Kansas and the Pacific atolls. They've flown the hump from India, tested the B-29's limits in mock raids, but nothing prepares you for the real thing. The knowledge that below lies an enemy desperate to defend their homeland. The Musashino plant, Target 357, sprawls across 1.5 million square feet, producing engines for the Imperial Japanese Army Air Force's deadliest interceptors. Knocking it out could cripple their ability to contest the skies, shortening the war by months, saving countless Allied lives. As the formation nears the initial point, the air grows thicker with anticipation.
Krause's voice breaks the hum.
Eyes sharp, boys. Flak expected at 10:30. Fighters could be anywhere.
The B-29s are flying high, above 30,000 feet, where the Japanese anti-aircraft guns struggle to reach. But the fighters, Kai-44 Shokis, Kai-61 Hyans, Kai-84 Hi-8s, are climbing to meet them. Reports from earlier missions whisper of aggressive intercepts, pilots willing to ram if bullets fail. The crew knows the risks. Just 3 weeks ago, on December 3rd, another B-29 from their group was lost to ramming over Tokyo. The first puffs of flak bloom below like black cotton balls, the 88mm shells bursting harmlessly 1,000 feet short.
But then, a speck on the horizon. Then two. Then a swarm. Japanese fighters from the 47th Sentai and 244th Sentai, scrambling from nearby airfields like Tokorozawa and Chofu. They come in waves, their radio engines screaming as they claw for altitude, machine guns and cannons winking in the sunlight.
"Bandits at 2 o'clock high!"
Sandlin calls from the tail, his voice edged with adrenaline. The gunners swivel their turrets, the computerized system locking on, tracers ready to arc out. Krause banks slightly to maintain formation, the massive 141-foot wingspan catching the wind. The B-29 is a technological wonder. Pressurized cabins allowing shirt-sleeve comfort at altitudes where unmasked men would black out in seconds, remote-controlled guns that fire without exposing gunners to the slipstream. But it's also vulnerable. Those huge wings, the thin skin over fuel tanks, the complex engines prone to fires. The crew feels the isolation, 1,500 miles from base, with only their wits and weapons between them and oblivion. As the fighters close, the first passes begin. High-speed dives from above, cannons thumping. Bullets ping off the fuselage, a sharp metallic ring echoing through the cabin.
Westerman at CFC coordinates the fire. Upper turret, engage! The .50 cals chatter, brass casings tumbling in the compartments. One Ki-44 bursts into flame, spiraling down in a trail of smoke. A confirmed kill for Seeley on the right gun. Cheers erupt over the intercom, but it's short-lived.
More fighters vector in, their pilots, young aces from the Imperial Army, pushing their machines to the limit, honor-bound to protect the capital. Rybicki in the nose adjusts his sight, the crosshairs aligning on the distant factory smokestacks. 2 minutes to bombs away, he announces. The formation tightens, lead plane Dauntless Dottie signaling the run. But the attacks intensify. A twin-engine Ki-45 Toryuu roars in from below, its 37mm cannon barking. Shrapnel rips through the belly, and alarms blare. Hydraulics hit, a fire flickering in engine number 3. Ray scrambles to feather the prop, dumping extinguishers. "We've got a leak! Pressure dropping!" The plane shudders, but holds. Krauss fights the controls, keeping them on course. You can sense the fear creeping in, the cold sweat under flight suits, the prayers whispered into oxygen masks. These men aren't just statistics. Krauss thinks of his family back in Illinois, Rollins of his sweetheart in California. Westerman, the Wisconsin farm boy, grips his periscope tighter, his mind flashing to snowy fields home. Then, the unthinkable. A lone Ki-44 breaks through the defensive fire, not firing, but accelerating straight at them. The pilot's face, glimpsed for a split second, set in grim determination. "He's coming right at us!" Sienkiewicz yells. Tracers lace out, clipping the fighter's wing, but it's too late. The ram is imminent, a desperate tactic born of Japan's waning air power. The impact looms, the formation watching in horror.